Sobriety is not recovery. And getting sober and going out and apologizing to your friends, your coworkers, your boss, yeah, that's a really powerful, shameful fucking experience. People deserve an apology if you wronged them, stole from them, hurt them physically, yeah. But sobriety is not the solution. Sobriety only delays the advancement of the illness. So I've had a lot of people ask me lately to give my views and opinions on recovery. If you're suffering from alcoholism, drug addiction, overeating, porn, any form of addiction whatsoever, pay attention to this podcast, this episode in particular, because it might offer you an opportunity to make a change in your life, because living in an addiction is an unbelievable reality that affects over 40 million Americans every single day. And it literally makes our reality unbelievable. I'm Roy Arthur. Let's just go ahead and get started on this. I'm not going to get into specifics on what to do, how to do, etc. I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, my experience, and what I finally found after 4 decades of trying to achieve a true state of recovery that has helped me. And then you can reach out through comments and feedback, and I'm happy to offer more insights, guidance, and wisdom, if you can call it that. To begin with, as I just said, I have been in and out of sobriety for almost 4 decades. And so the first thing I would say to you, if you're suffering right now, is don't lose hope, because as long as you're still breathing and as long as you truly have a desire to try to change your life, whatever the cost, there is options, there is alternatives. And this is 2025. This isn't 1985. Things have changed a fuck ton. And there's a lot of information out there that can be really helpful, readily available, and available online for little or no cost. So keep that in mind. First of all, I got to start out with one thing that I know to be true, and I know it's true because of my own personal experience. If you have ever tried to get sober, you know what this book is. In the beginning of every podcast, I do a literary reference, but to every single person that's ever tried to get sober anywhere, you know exactly what this book is. This is the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, otherwise known the Bible as the Bible of the program. So let's start there. I got to be honest when I say that in my experience with Alcoholics Anonymous can serve a purpose for somebody that is looking to try to find a way to stop drinking or using. And that purpose is in the very beginning to offer you community, which is just like-minded people that are suffering from the same affliction. The wisdom of the book, the 12 steps, the religious foundation of this, do be aware, this is a Christian program. No matter how they dress it up with you pick the God of your choosing, that's bullshit. Every meeting is closed with the Lord's Prayer. That didn't come from Buddhism. Just start there. In addition to which, the guy that started the program was a heroin addict after he was an alcoholic, and was basically a grifter looking for a way to make a buck, and stumbled across this, found a doctor who would agree with his philosophy because it miraculously worked. And what started out as a really, really small group of people in Akron, Ohio, way back in the early 1900s, eventually turned into a $5 billion a year industry. I shit you not. 85% of the treatment programs in the United States right now follow the 12-step model, which is known now as the Minnesota model because it was pioneered by Hazeltine recovery programs, the 12-step program. So here's what I have to say about that. I'm a huge bibliophile. Anybody's watched my podcast, you know that. I love reading, I love information, and more than anything, I love facts and numbers. And the reason why I love numbers so much is because numbers don't lie. They don't. You can dance around numbers, you can pretend like they're not real, you can try to tweak the numbers or fudge the numbers, but the numbers never lie. If you got somebody working for you and they have a sales goal and they consistently miss that goal 3 months in a row, you know you've hired the wrong person, no matter how much you like that person, because that person is not performing. Their numbers don't lie. That's a little input for me from being a small business owner and from being in sales for over 40 years. I know sales and I know numbers, and numbers don't fucking lie. And the truth of the matter is that the numbers on Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12-step programs are horrific. The reality of AA is that only 5% actually make it 1 year. Sit with that for a minute. Every time a judge mandates that somebody convicted of a DUI, a drug offense, possession, etc., must attend 12-step meetings, they're signing you up for failure because only 5% actually make it a year. What's even more daunting, and this is when I really dove into these numbers and starting doing some research on recovery after my final episode of getting into recovery, which was some time ago, many months over years ago, was the fact that of the average 30-day inpatient program, which now costs somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000, which is also not covered by most insurance programs. If you have one that does, you're fucking lucky. Take advantage of it. But the average inpatient program costs $30,000 to $40,000. It's 30 days. 50%, I shit you not, 50% of the attendees will relapse within 30 days. Within 30 days. It gets worse. Only 20% will make it to 6 months. You can look up these statistics on Google. As always, I say check my information and my opinions. Do your own research. It's really simple. Do it on your phone, for fuck's sakes. 20% make it to 6 months. Here's another shocker. 60% of people that are in a 30-day inpatient program have already gone through a 30-day inpatient program prior. Repeat offenders, so to speak. We have been sold a story, a lie, a book, literally pulled out of somebody's ass, with one quote from Carl Jung, who didn't even know that it was going to be in the book when he gave his opinion on the 12-step program, wherein he flat out said, there, in order for somebody to get better, to get into real recovery, a psychic change must occur. Not they need to find God or religion. They need to have an actual psychic change. That means a complete rewiring of the brain if they have any hope of success at all. One of my knocks on AA and the 12-step programs is that it always puts it on the recovering addict, whether they pass, fail, or continue. If you've been in the rooms as many years as I have, you've seen thousands come and go. Thousands that are in for a month and disappear and no one ever hears from them again. They can't have all died. They can't have all ended up in jails or institutions, which is the dire threat of AA. So where did they go? What happened to them? Some of these people must have found an alternative. But AA says the people that don't recover simply cannot adhere to these basic, simple principles. They put the responsibility on the addict. I find the hypocrisy in that overwhelming for one simple reason. Addicts are the least responsible people in the fucking world. And now you're going to make it their fault if they don't succeed in your program? It's never the program's fault. The program is never wrong. Does that sound like something else you may have heard of? What we will hear in the rooms is oftentimes, well, you didn't work the steps hard enough. How hard do you work a step as nebulous as that? The first step. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. How much harder do you have to do that? And every time you relapse, because here's another startling statistic. Only 4% of people that go into a recovery program, a treatment program, etc., actually recover without having a relapse. Relapse, which is the mark of Cain in this Christian guidebook, is a sin. But in truth, relapse is a part of recovery for the vast majority of addicts. My experience as a person that went out, so many times I literally can't count. I cannot tell you how many times I've had 90 days, 120 days, 6 months, a couple of years. I've done it all. I've been that guy. I've been that guy that sat there and thought to himself, oh, I got it this time. I'm good. Only to wake up 2 weeks later going, oh shit, I guess I'm not done drinking yet. And then the guy that, of course, once you're back in the grip of whatever your substance is, now that substance is pretty much what your life revolves around day to day. It's about getting it, having it, making sure you have enough money. Do you have the connections? Do you have the dealers? Do you have the sources? It's all you think about. You go to work, you think about, well, how often, when can I get off and go have a drink, a use, or whatever? Or when you get really sick, like I was, you're actively using throughout the course of the day. And when you get really, really sick, which I was, then you can't go a day. You can't not function without it. You can't function without it. You have to have it just to function. That's when your sickness has become terminal. And now you're at a point where either something intercedes, your life just continues on this horrible track, or something really, really bad happens. Because one thing about addicts, they're not the best fucking decision makers in the world. Great example, sidebar, Pete Hegseth's running our military. He's an obvious alcoholic. Obvious. Do you trust that guy to make decisions? I, as a recovering alcoholic, say, oh, fuck no. But apparently we're supposed to. See the double standard in society? Because he's in a post where he's powerful, etc., they pretend like his addiction isn't an issue, isn't something he could be compromised over, won't cause him to make an ill-fated decision that costs lives. See, a lot of wealthy people get away with being addicts because of their wealth. They hide behind their money. And I know a lot of functional addicts. I've been one. I owned my own business for 15 fucking years, and I drank throughout the entire time. And yet I was still able to get up in the morning and go to work and make a living. Was I happy? No. I was miserable. But I still pulled it off right up until I couldn't. And that's another myth of AA. Well, you really won't be able to get better until you hit rock bottom. Here's a bad piece of news for everybody. Rock bottom doesn't fucking exist. You think you hit bottom, that's only based on your experience up until that point. But trust me when I say that bottom can get worse. You think your first DUI was your rock bottom, your wake up moment, your hallelujah, your epiphany? Right, it was right up until you got your second. But that time you were convinced that that was the one. This is as bad as it can get. That'll never happen again. I'm going to devote myself to my recovery. And by God, yeah, super sorry, right up until what? Then you have the domestic violence. Get all fucked up and angry because of whatever reason, it doesn't matter. That anger lives inside. The reality in my mind and my experience and my opinion is that 12-step programs don't work because what they focus on is wrong. Sobriety is not recovery. Repeat that over and over and over. Sobriety is not recovery. And getting sober and going out and apologizing to your friends, your coworkers, your boss, yeah, that's a really powerful, shameful fucking experience. People deserve an apology if you wronged them, stole from them, hurt them physically. Yeah. The rest of the people, they know you were sick. They know that you were suffering. You don't have to come groveling back for them to get Johnny was fucked up. But sobriety is not the solution. Sobriety only delays the advancement of the illness. It is only recovery that allows you to rebuild your life. Remember that concept because that's so important. For me, for so many years, I thought sobriety was the end all. I thought that was the game. I thought that was it. That's what AA teaches. Just get sober and stay sober. I mean, how many times did I hear in the rooms, just don't drink over it, just don't pick up? Like sobriety was the holy grail. It fucking isn't. It's not. Recovery is a much bigger perspective and reality than sobriety. Recent research finally has begun to delve into the fact that the majority of addicts, the majority, not all, there's always outliers in everything. So there's never 100% on any study, any fact, any vaccine for you freakers. There's always going to be outliers where it doesn't work or they just don't have the same thing. But research today tells us that most addiction issues for most people are caused by trauma. For a lot of people, it goes back all the way to childhood, which is now why in new treatment options, they're discovering and using cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, introspective meditation, self-help, self-care, etc. All the things that are missing from this 12-step program. Because to recover, the first job is you got to take care of you. And the only way you can take care of you is you have to learn how to. Because we don't know how to. For 4 decades almost, I kept asking myself, why can't I get this? I'm a smart guy. Why can't I figure this out? Why does this keep happening? Why do I get sober? Why does it last for a while? Why does my life get better? Let me tell you why it gets better. When you're sober, you stop stepping on your own dick. Therefore, you don't fuck up shit as much, and voila, life gets better. About 90 days in, though, you hit a wall. Because that's about how long life gets better, and then reality comes back. What the most recent research says to us is that addiction is caused by trauma, whether that's childhood, teenage, young adult, war. Think of how many veterans have come back with PTSD from Iraq, Afghanistan, Korea, Vietnam, and ended up in psych wards or drunks or drug addicts because of the trauma, the unhealed, untreated trauma. Sidebar, we treat our vets like shit. What we really don't offer them is help for their minds. And that is unconscionable and unforgivable. Back to addiction before I run out of time. Sobriety is not recovery. I said at the beginning of the podcast, there is hope for you. Most people, let's be honest, don't look for help until something fucking bad happens. They beat up their wife. They get a DUI. They get evicted. They lose a job. Take your pick. They crash their car. They lose all their possessions. They get robbed in a drug deal gone bad. They get beat up because they shot their mouth off at a bar. I didn't get this nose by accident. That was one of my main things. I love getting drunk and thinking I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. That was not true. Some things you have to learn the hard way. But most people that come to a place where they realize I gotta get better because it's because their lives are so fucked up that they're really left with no alternatives. Either the court's telling them to do it, the wife's telling them to do it, the kids are telling them to do it, the boss is telling them to do it, etc. The truth is, very few of us are fortunate enough to be able to look in a mirror and go, my God, I gotta fix me. And even those of us that do, because I told myself that for, like I said, decades. Even those of us who do don't have the keys to unlock the answers. The keys are out there. They do exist. They do exist. And there is hope. Like I said, feel free to reach out in the comment section. I'll give you some ideas. I'm going to go and do another podcast and dive deeper into things that I have done that have helped in my recovery. But I wanted to make this absolutely clear. It's especially to those people that have relapsed, those people that are new coming into an attempt at recovery, this simple fact. AA if you can't afford to go to detox, if you can't afford an outpatient program, if you're not willing to go to the hospital and be medically detoxed, if you've got nobody around you except all your friends drinking drugs, AA at least gives you a place to start in those first couple 3 weeks to get some time. Because the most important thing in recovery is time. The longer you do something, the more ingrained it becomes and the easier it is to follow the habit. Think about that if you're an addict, right? Once it became a habit, why do they call it a habit? Yeah, there's a lot of buzzword bingo out there around this subject. But once again, that will be in another podcast. But I wanted to say this because I've been asked to do this by a lot of people I know who've watched my recovery journey. They asked me to share my story. My story's too long for a 30-minute podcast. So unfortunately, I got to break it up. If you like this unbelievable reality, because this is an unbelievable reality that such a large portion, think about it, 15% of adults in America are addicts. Minimum. That means it touches everybody's lives almost entirely. Anyway, follow on TikTok, Instagram, leave comments, leave feedback. Tell me your story. I'd love to hear it. But remember this, before you go drop 30 grand on a 30-day inpatient program that's only going to buy you 30 days of reprieve, then you're going to walk out the door, get hit in the face with the 2x4 of life, right where you left the disaster when you ran from it. And you think you're going to stay in recovery, you're a fucking idiot. If you don't have an aftercare program, therapy, support, etc., you're not gonna make it. So don't spend the money. There's other ways to do this while you're piecing your life back together. You're keeping your job. Hopefully you're keeping your family and you're starting to heal. That's what recovery means. It means healing. Once again, I'm Roy Arthur, Unbelievable Reality Podcast. These are my thoughts, expressions, opinions. If you don't like them, well, then don't fucking listen. If you do, subscribe, follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and Spotify. I need your support, and I'm not afraid to ask for it. More on this in the next episode. In the meantime, as always, I'll see you again.